And welcome to VSA Capital video blog, and delighted today to have Kevin MacNeill, the CEO of EQ Resources. Now, EQ Resources is ASX listed, and it has two tungsten projects, one in Queensland at Mount Carbine, and the other, which I have just very recently visited and was really amazed by, is the Saloro tungsten mine in Spain, very close to Salamanca. And Kevin, you haven't had it that long, but what you've done in turning it around is just, frankly, amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Andrew. It's been, it's certainly been a team effort here for sure, right? We've hired a very good ops manager, and the existing team that was here also were pretty competent. I think they were just missing the metallurgical portion of it. Everything else was done really well, and they were just missing that metallurgical touch, I think, in the operation that we added to it as EQ. I think it's one of our strengths.
Well, we'll come on to a little of that in a minute. And by the way, I fully endorse the people I met were really good. I really enjoyed meeting them. But I mean, the first thing that struck me, there I was standing at the edge of, first of all, what is a massive pit. But what really got to me was, number one, you're right by a village. There doesn't seem to be any complaints. But more importantly, you're in the middle of a nature reserve, and yet there you are breeding eagle and falcon chicks at the same time as mining tungsten. I mean, it's extraordinary how you've done that. And well done to you, by the way. But I mean, just give us a little chat on that.
Yeah, it's really been a journey for the team here, and like I said, they've done most everything very, very well, including the ESG component of it. And when they got their permitting, the black stork was nesting in the pit itself. So this was a big issue because it's a very endangered species, and it turns out they've worked with both the university and the government, and they've had an incredible breeding program within the pit walls. So they breed for a certain time of the year, and then they go off to Africa, and then they come back again, and they move the nest, and then when they come back again, they happen to nest in the pit because they like it for some reason, and we've hatched several chicks, and we also sponsor several outreach around the area, around the national park, for this breeding program. But the most successful is in the open pit.
I just thought it was amazing and a great way of combining an ESG credential for mining. And look, we did go down into the pit. It's a pretty sort of standard go down, but it is big, it's deep. And I mean, you've got the mining operation going well. But what also then amazed me as we came away from the pit towards the process plant is that you have a lot of material ready to be processed, and you are processing 24/7. I mean, you've got a pretty efficient system going there, and I was just amazed by the amount of product there. I mean, just give a little explanation of that, maybe.
Yeah. What's interesting is the excuse me. What's interesting is that we have about 250,000 tons on stockpile, right? Which is about 100 days on stockpile ahead of it, and it's in various stockpiles. So there's high, medium, low grade, and then high sulfide, low sulfide. So the guys have a recipe for blending this, and this is one of the things that I think EQ brought to the table, is part of that metallurgical aspect, where you don't just run all high grade sulfide and then you have poor recovery. You blend it in as you go. So and then from there, we have a primary crusher, and then we have a reclaim tunnel again with about 3 or 4 or 5 days worth of stock on that. And then that goes ahead into a silo, which we have a few days of stock at the silo. So that allows us, so if the crusher breaks or they need a repair or whatever, it just doesn't stop, right? So then the only thing we have to stop is the plant every now and again. But the availability runs around 93-94% for the plant running continually.
And then, I mean, one of the first things we saw as we went into the plant was, I think what everybody now has is the ore sorters, the TOMRA ore sorters. But they've worked pretty well for you, haven't they?
Yeah, no, excellent. I mean, that's one of the secrets to EQ, is on the ore sorting. Obviously, we reduce about 10 times the mass that hits the ore sorter. It's a a very high recovery. We're getting 97+% recovery out of those sorters, and we reduce the volume significantly going through the sorters. It's about 10 times the reduction. So if there's 100 tons goes into the sorter, 10 tons comes out with most of the 97% of the tungsten in the product, and then that allows us to push more tonnage into the plant, more metallurgical units coming into the plant.
And then as you go into the plant, there were one or two things that did catch my eye, actually. The first is that your flow, shall we say, started a little bit different from what I was expecting. You start with jigs.
Yeah. No, it's so everything is crushed, even like because of the ore sorter. We crush everything down to 5 millimeters after ore sorting. And then, we have these massive jigs that, so we separate it. Everything 1 to 5 millimeters goes to the jig, and everything minus 1 millimeters goes to the spiral section. And again, the jigs are quite effective. We're seeing very good recovery in the jigs, and we've learned some things at Carbine to help us increase recovery on the jigging, and we are applying them here.
Yeah, and as you say, the spirals seem to be working well, and you've obviously got the tables, although they were quite, from what I've seen before, quite small tables, actually pretty quiet tables as well, which is quite good. And then you also had, I think you were skimming off the top, weren't you? That was something I hadn't seen before in a process plant.
Yeah, what we have is that so once we make the concentrate from the tables, so the spiral concentrate and the jig concentrate comes together, and then we crush it down with a rod mill, and then it goes into a flotation circuit to take off the sulfide, take off the arsenopyrite. So it gives us a very high grade, clean concentrate to sell with no deleterious materials in the final concentrate.
And then, as you say, you were coming out, and wonderful that you see the end material going into a bag, the water drains out, and you end up with a nice tungsten product. And you've got the recoveries up, and you've taken them, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, from about 30-40% right up to 70%.
Yeah, we're heading for 70. We took them from 38 up to about 60 to 65. Currently, we're bouncing around in that, and we've had the odd day up over 70. And certainly our next target, and that's what we're here now, is to implement a few more recovery operations that the guys are going to implement over the next month or two, and keep increasing and keep ticking away. So originally, when we originally looked at this project, I told the board that I think I can get this to 65%, which is sort of typical for a scheelite project. And but yeah, we quickly went there, and then there's lots of room for improvement. So I think we'll be hitting 75 plus at the end of the day.
Which is a great recovery. I mean, the other thing that I noticed was, you walk outside the process plant back to the main office, and there's not much noise outside the plant, and yet it's all operating and going. I mean, how do you keep it so quiet?
Yeah, well, we don't have DMSs. I guess that's the first thing, right? Is the amount of screening and whatever goes with that. But it's contained in the building, and it is quite quiet, right? The mine itself, and it's a beautiful mine, in particular, like it's a very pretty mine.
Well, it's beautiful, and it's right next door to a village, and the villagers obviously are quite happy, and the local community is happy. You're providing a lot of jobs. I think you've got nearly 200 people from the local community
Correct.
working for you there, haven't you?
Correct. Yeah. We have about 200 people, and both from the mining contractor and ourselves. We're running about 200 people, all local individuals, locally trained individuals. So,
And so, have you taken a lot of the knowledge you got out of Mount Carbine in Queensland and brought it to Spain? Is that the secret?
Well, in some cases, yes. But again, I would say that the guys had probably 75% of the operation right from the ESG, the mining, the availability of the plant. What was missing was the metallurgical aspect, and I think that's what we brought, right? So I wouldn't want to take credit for the overall running, but the guys did do a very good job prior to my arrival, or our EQ's arrival, on several fronts, right? So all we did was kind of bring in that metallurgical part, and we let them run at them now. And we also brought in our chief operating officer for Spain here, and he lives here and works full time.
I mean, is tungsten quite different from other metals? Does it have some pretty unique properties? Is that maybe where some people get it a bit wrong? They don't change the system enough because it's tungsten.
Yeah, in particular, scheelite is also a problem. Some issues had to do with clay on some mines. It is sensitive. It is a gravity system, and you have to do the basics right. But scheelite in particular is incredibly tricky, because even though tungsten is incredibly hard as a metal, as an element, it's not, right. So a lot of people tend to overgrind it. And then make it incredibly fine, and then you can't gravity separate it, right? And that's sort of the biggest issue. And at Carbine, we've implemented a few tricks to eliminate that aspect of it.
This video is very much just to update on that site visit. I cannot still describe how impressed I was, and that's one message I want to get across. I've seen other tungsten mines. You blew me away. It's a fantastic operation. You've got a great team. I know you're an ambitious board, yourself and your board, within the tungsten market. I really do wish you as much luck as possible, because you deserve it. It's such a good operation. But if anybody watching this has got further questions and wants to know more about EQ Resources, please do get in touch with us, or go direct to Kevin. EQ is traded on the ASX. Actually, for what it's worth, it must be a cheap stock because it's such a good operation. That's all I can say. But Kevin, thanks for coming on board. I'm sure we'll be talking again more, because you've got me very, very excited.